James Schramko here. Welcome back to my podcast. This is episode 1113, and we're going to be talking about e-commerce SEO in the age of the AI era. I mean, we're going to cover what's changing and what still works. Clearly, we're in a dynamic market. It's changing how people search. But the truth is Google is still the king at this point. Google searches grew by 20% in 2024. So we're hearing a lot about ChatGPT, but that's really just getting about the same traffic as Pinterest. But AI-powered search is evolving fast. So how do you stay ahead? How does this impact your e-commerce SEO? And what 5 things should you be optimizing for right now? That's exactly what we're going to be diving into today. And of course, I've brought along my specialist expert on this topic, Gert Mellak from, what are we from now these days, Gert? It was SEO Leverage, but we're now at a PlatformLeverage, are we?
Exactly. We still have SEO Leverage and are pretty much doing our SEO consulting as usual. Good to be back on the show, by the way. We have developed over time just based on the necessities of these fast-moving times, I guess, the brand PlatformLeverage.com, which is pretty much a program where we help businesses engage with their audience across platforms.
So the sort of highlights of this at the moment, we're in a crossover. I was actually having a conversation earlier today with someone who's in the SEO business. They have a website business, an SEO business, and we're just talking about, golly, like we're changing. Even the names of the industry is changing. And then I had another member saying that they've just signed up a client who found them from ChatGPT. When they asked the source, where did you find out about us? They said, ChatGPT. I went to ChatGPT and I searched for a phrase. I searched for, are cheap surfboards a waste of money? And guess what ChatGPT threw up? It threw up my YouTube video for my surf channel in the search result as a helpful video that might be great for me to go and investigate further. So I'm seeing it. I'm just wondering if the man on the street or the small business owner or the e-commerce store in particular, which is probably where we want to focus on for this episode, are they seeing it? Is it changing the landscape yet? Where are we at in terms of the transition?
I think it's definitely a very, very important point. So just to give a little bit of a scale, there was just a research coming out. Google gets about 400 times the searches ChatGPT gets.
Wow. Okay. So think about how long Google's been around and how big it is. That's actually pretty impressive for ChatGPT is what I take from that. But it's not like Google disappeared overnight, is it?
Definitely not, and they're definitely not giving up either. They're heavily innovating. I think their entire team is innovating in AI as fast and as much as they really can. But it's important because very often we obviously ahead of this AI movement and are testing every day, and I spend hours and hours every week just testing new stuff for our clients and developing new apps and platforms, etc. But we must not forget that really, like you said, a person in the street doing their shopping, doing their research, might not be acting just the way we are, where we're always trying to leverage the newest tools to work more efficiently. So 400 times more searches than ChatGPT definitely needs to bring us to the point where we say, hey, let's definitely make sure we get our SEO right. But obviously, with the fast growth of AI tools, make sure we do this SEO in a way where it can also support the future developments.
Well, that's a really interesting point. I mean, there's a lot of people out gunning for Google. I think I saw something from the guy in charge of Perplexity saying, Google's in trouble. People aren't going to be Googling in the future as much. Definitely seen normal people talking about Perplexity. Recently, I've had people come say, "Oh, have you heard of Perplexity? It's really good for research, and it's a combination of." It's like a mashup of search plus the language machine. I'm like, yeah, I have heard of it. It's pretty cool. I like Perplexity as well. But then one of the customers came to me and said, hey, now that I'm aware that clients are coming to me from chat, this is like a new bright shiny object. I'm going to have to go and spend some time on that. And I was sort of thinking, it's not knowing what I know about SEO, it's not really a one and done type of activity. You don't just go out and tick a box and suddenly you're ranking on all the AI tools. The way that I see it is it's more of a way of doing things that would change the way you do things ongoing today, next week, next month, next year. It's a new setting, I think, for how you distribute content. And I think some of the principles, and certainly what I'm telling my team, is make sure you've got really valuable content no matter where you put it, and don't just play the SEO game for Google. We have to be more open-minded now. And I was very encouraged to see some of those tools, even Perplexity, it's getting seeded with my own content. So how do you think you would approach it if you're running an e-commerce store and up until like last year, let's say 2024, you would have had a part of your marketing calendar, or your chief marketing officer would have been spending some time optimizing listings for Google. They would have been doing all the titles and the unique descriptions and great pictures and valuable articles and putting the really important stuff at the top, all the cool stuff for Google. What changes for that role?
I think it's a really good question. We have seen, specifically because you mentioned Perplexity, Google just launched something in a beta mode that's called AI mode, which is pretty much copying what Perplexity is doing, which is interesting because Perplexity obviously tried to go after Google.
Colour me purple. I'm absolutely shocked. Do you mean to say a large tech company has copied another large tech company?
Yeah, it usually never happens.
Do you reckon, would the ultimate irony be seeing Google search on the Killed by Google website? Is that possible?
Where this actually goes, right? I've been saying, I think I said it on this show as well a few times. We have seen a very clear trend over the last 2-3 years of SEO and content work becoming more technical.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely becoming more automated.
More automated, but also what we see, for example, is that many people are doing SEO like 15 years ago. I've been doing this for 25, so I have a rough idea where we came from and where we are. And then we have a lot of people doing SEO like quite a few years ago, where the jump from back then to those from those methodologies to where we are now is definitely huge. Companies that have been doing SEO in a more up-to-date fashion, looking at things like entities, like embeddings, vectors, etc. There are a lot of technical stuff. Not everybody needs to understand until down to the latest detail. But there's like a big importance of semantics now in search, and has been for actually a lot of years, and it has been ignored by a large part of people that are actually quote unquote doing SEO.
How would you explain semantics in a few sentences to a layman?
I would say, if you think about the word Amazon can mean different things, and it's going to depend on the context what it means. If you talk Amazon the river, or you see Amazon Prime, the machine needs a way to figure out that those are different things. And the machine ultimately is running a lot of numbers. They're creating so-called vectors or embeddings, which is hundreds or thousands of dimensions of numbers, essentially, that give words meaning in their context. And this is how language models figure out what is the most likely next word, what's probably the meaning of a text. And once we go down to this level, and we have built some internal tools, for example, to run the math on content from our clients and from competitors to see where the math actually is, which is something you don't see in the tools usually. Once you go down to that level, you see, hey, it's clear that the page can't rank because the math just doesn't work out. And it's normal that it doesn't come up in the language models in ChatGPT because the math doesn't work out the way the website was built, the way the content was written. And this is where I would say to this e-commerce site, first of all, let's make sure we have proper SEO from 2025, not SEO from 2015 that we do, where we really focus on what is the machine going to take away from this page. Is this the machine going to understand this product? Is it going to understand in which context this product makes sense and for which audience? And when you're there, you're already halfway there when it comes to language models as well, because ultimately your website is the best database for a language model to learn about your products in connection with your brand.
So we've come a long way from the old just mentioning the keyword a bunch of times on a page, right? That was when SEO, I guess, was so simple that the main way they could tell if something was about something was they'd see the keywords sprinkled all through the website. And then they got really tricky and they put more focus on whether it's in the first part of the page or the middle of the page, and then like how many words are on the page, and then who links to the page and what words are around surrounding the link and what words are used in the links, all these technical terms like anchor text and proximity. So we're going way deeper now. How easy or hard is it for automation tools to simulate that semantic, contextual thing? Is it at a point where it's significantly better than a human?
I still believe strongly in a blended approach. Right, on the one hand, you see a language model obviously can take into account semantics, and you can ask it to produce an neuro-linguistic processing friendly text, and it's going to sound like a robot, which is a text you definitely can't use directly, but it's going to be very well optimized so another engine can easily understand it and follow the context and understand the meaning. But then you want to obviously bring in like the human element. The text needs to sell as well. It doesn't only need to rank and show up in the language model, it needs to sell. So we strongly believe in this blended approach where we essentially feed some information into the machine. The machine gives us some sort of text. We have a human expert edit it again and make sure that this text actually is written in a way that makes sense for both the machine, but also for human readers. The important element, and this is, I think, where the machine really comes in, is that the machine very often helps us to connect the missing dots. I'll give you an example. You talk about, email marketing, and you don't talk about subject lines. The machine might say this is not a good article about email marketing because it's not talking.
Because it's missing something that's like, so critical, or deliverability rates.
Exactly. So your article might not be seen as an article about email marketing because you're missing an important point.
It's one of my favorite prompts, actually. What's missing from this? Because I do it naturally, it's good to have that little robot thing. And I remember seeing that documentary, like The Social Dilemma, about how many data points they have on consumers. Like when they knew, I think they had like 3,000 data points or 30,000 data points, and they knew when a lady was pregnant before the lady did, and they start showing them ads for baby products and stuff. And it's like, this is where people think, oh, the phone's listening to me. It's I mentioned something and then it's showing me the ad, but they know so much about you, and they can they've got all this computer, what is it, supercomputers, quantum computing power to crunch what us humans can't really comprehend. So we've talked a fair bit about how the algorithm, I suppose you'd call it as an algorithm, and the ability of the tools on the search engine side have been improving to figure out what's what, and how we might use some of those tools to look for gaps. But how is the other side of the equation changing? How is the user changing in this environment, search behavior? Because I've noticed for myself, I'll still use Google to look up a restaurant and to find their phone number, or something that is specific to a Google type search. But if I'm just looking for information, let's say it's sort of Wikipedia style information, rather than Google it and then look at Wikipedia listing that comes up, I'll probably lean more on GPT or Perplexity these days. So are users sort of switching across and not coming back, or are they hyper-threading between two different tools like I am, or something else?
It definitely depends heavily on the niche. So when we research audiences in our PlatformLeverage program, for example, the first step is an audience research. We have tools to figure out whether this particular audience is more or less likely to use ChatGPT in their day-to-day platform choice. And this is where we see really huge differences. So there might be like marketing tech related. They're just more inclined to use AI tools, even the less known ones, so like Perplexity or Claude come up there more often, whereas less savvy, less tech related fields might tend at best to ChatGPT, but are very Google focused. Bing might come up more often as a search engine there as well. Depends also on the generation. Older generations even more even on Bing and Google, and not at all at ChatGPT. So you really want to have a good feeling for your audience. And we can research this, especially in big markets like the US, on what the search behavior is and if this is more or less than the average user actually on those platforms. And then when they use those platforms, the search behavior definitely changes because we have been trained over 20 years to use Google in a certain way. And even though some people still like search for entire questions, when we take out the queries, most people really like break down their questions into the most important parts. However, with a language model, it's actually conversation where you start somewhere very, very broad usually, and the language model tries to narrow down your search. So I search, for example, for, I don't know, I'm into woodworking, so I might search for a table saw, right? And it's going to ask me a lot of questions. And those questions, as SEOs, as marketers, we want to pay very close attention to.
Where do you think we're at the hype scale? Clearly, part of the issue is in industries like yours, and this really stems back to a great old Peter Drucker philosophy, which was in any changing market, there'll be opportunities and entrepreneurs should seek out those opportunities and move towards them. There's a lot of opportunity seekers in the online space. And of course, the SEO people from 25 or 20 or 15 years ago were doing really well with this whole new internet thing. And so there's a lot of people with a vested interest or a bias at stake in trying to convince people that, like this old thing will die, you're going to be finished if you stay there, or this, you can't do it this way anymore. But they have so many biases. If we strip all that away, where are we at in terms of hype versus real change happening with AI?
I think you want to really start looking at your actual data. So our clients, for example, have a specific report we create for them where they see how much traffic comes from the different platforms. So you see what is the status in your industry. So you might see an industry where there's considerable traffic, hundreds or even thousands of visitors coming to an online course, for example, from a client of ours, where they say, hey, this is actually something real, we need to double down. And then we have one client, for example, who is extremely hyped up about ChatGPT. And when we break down the numbers, he's getting 2 clicks a month. So it's just really, it's this feeling you get depending on what content you consume. Something is like much, much bigger than it actually is. So you want to put some numbers next to it and say, okay, let's first of all see what my current status is. Maybe I'm not getting traffic because I'm not well optimized. And let's see, okay, is actually competitors coming up? Can I research my audience? Can I put some sort of number next to it where I say it actually pays off to spend an hour or two of my time every week on optimizing my content for those platforms? Or is the current situation in my industry just such that it's something like we, over years we wouldn't consider Bing because the percentage was so low? But right now, ChatGPT is at similar levels, and we believe this is like the biggest thing we need to jump in right now. There is an opportunity, though. It's growing fast, and the opportunity right now is that a lot of people are not optimizing for it, and they're doing SEO like 10 years ago.
So I think Bing versus Google, that's kind of more like a oranges versus mandarins thing. But it would seem that Google would probably have a higher intent or maybe a more direct path to a purchase versus more informational based AI searches. And do people still go to AI to search for when they're actually trying to buy something?
I would think so, because they just get like they're looking for really real feedback, user feedback. What is people experience from XYZ, right? From this particular product. And we see as a result, for example, forums, Reddit, Quora come up all the time, comparison platforms, etc. So I think people turn there to make an informed decision, but the decision is not like I type something in and I get my answer. The decision is I type something in, I kind of engage with this tool over some time, and I come back with like 3 options that are recommended, that have reviews where I can research the sources. And then I'm pretty much in the decision-making process already. Whereas on Google, I might just go away and do my research again, or take this idea. But here I actually have a broken down selection of 3 options rather than the 500 I might have considered on Google, just because it gets refined over time. So I wouldn't rule out ChatGPT really for the decision making completely, whereas okay, the intent can be really strong, but it's developed on the platform. Whereas on Google, you probably have the intent before you go there. Depending on your search, you land on a transactional page and can close the deal. In ChatGPT, you might not have a buying intent, but it actually leads you there based on the content because it just narrows it down so much that it seems a straightforward answer.
Well, I mean, if Google's incorporating AI into their search, how long is it until AI just has a recommended purchase field? I mean, you'd have to think if Perplexity, for example, has some funding from Bezos, it'd be a nice fit for Amazon products, in the e-commerce topic here.
Whoever pays is going to have some sort of advantage, right? We're not going to necessarily be able to figure this out, and there are obviously regulations behind this as well on what they can and can't do, as we have seen with shopping, Google Shopping, for example, as well, and price comparison.
YouTube with Google, and there's all sorts of interesting.
Exactly, it's not as easy as it could be, but obviously we have strong relationships between Bing and ChatGPT, between Bezos and Perplexity, Google running their own show. We're going to see how this turns out, but I think one thing that's definitely clear is that Google has been trying to get ahead of Amazon directly for quite a while, and we see a lot of movement in the last couple of years towards this direction, where Google really wants to make sure they are one of the main sources for product searches, which is something that very often escapes the Google search box for now.
Google seems like they try for so many things, like even the parent company trying for cars, flying cars, and all this sort of stuff. Like they've failed at a lot of stuff, haven't they? Mm-hmm. They can't fail with Google search. It's really their big dog. Whereas, like even Amazon, I would say Bezos is a good bet. He's done pretty well with AWS and all the things that he's done. Look, like he's definitely had a lot of foresight with Amazon. A lot of people didn't think that could happen.
Absolutely.
So you're saying that people will search differently on AI. Are people even going to AI to search for e-commerce stuff?
I would think so. Think so.
Like
we definitely see indications.
Let's take the woodworking example. Let's say you had a woodworking e-commerce store and you sold all the cool tools, lathes and different types of chisels and so forth. That's the limit of my woodworking knowledge right there. But let's say you sold all these things. How are you practically going to optimize for the AI platform? What's your goal there?
The goal is that you pretty much have content that's similar to normal ChatGPT conversation. So what do I mean by this? I give you an example. Could be that for this particular woodworking example, one of the first questions or attempts the language model is going to take to narrow down the possible answers is to ask you what your level of experience is. Is it for professional use or is it for beginners? Do you have enough space for a tool? How much space do you have, etc.? So it's going to try to attack your question from different angles. And you can also very quickly see on Perplexity, for example, specifically, Perplexity is breaking down your question into multiple searches. So you do a search on Perplexity and you're going to see it breaks it down into 3 different searches.
That's why I think it's one of its strongest features is the next query that you click on it's very clever. It's like a choose your own adventure. Mm-hmm. I mean, is this too simple? I'm just thinking out loud here. If AI wants to serve up an answer that is like AI, surely you could go through the query as a purchaser of your e-commerce products and then save all of that and have it reformulated into an SEO article or several articles based on the conversation you just had with it.
You definitely want to try to reverse engineer where does the answer probably come from, and also what kind of pages are cited. So very often, for example, in e-commerce, you're going to see CDNet cited for software, very often CNET, for example, or for products, Wire, etc. So you see those pages cited. So first of all, you want to see, can I actually get onto these pages? Can I get my product to those comparisons or my brand up there? because it's obviously a source this language model considers. Then obviously your own website can also be a source, but I just did a research, for example, for a Mac laptop, Apple wasn't a source. I had 4 other platforms. Apple wasn't one of the possible sources. Why? Because my question was geared towards a small Apple laptop. And this is not the way Apple talks about their products on their website. So why should the language model bring them up? So it's not that it understands that obviously Apple should be one of the sources and let's put it up there. It's trying to match the content from your query, from potential answers with what you have on your website. And if there is no match at all, you're just not going to come up.
I think that's why the ChatGPT brought up my video on the topic of the surfboard query, because my video was exactly on topic and broke down all the pros and cons. And we even replicated the video onto our website. This is one small thing we do, and I've noticed some other podcasters haven't done this. Once we publish the YouTube video, the team get it transcribed and then they chunk it into a nice article for our website with all pictures from screenshots of the video that are all labeled with proper SEO attributes. And then they put that on our website and we're getting ranked everywhere. It's so funny. When I've got a custom surfboard being built right now, and I went to look up the model to find out more about it, and my own site came up that the team had made like last year sometime on this model. So I'm going to loop back into my own resource, which is like, it speaks volumes in terms of leverage and team and stuff, but also like all paths lead back to my own website. And so I think what's happening there is we're still working with some of the elements that are unlikely to change, which is to just create valuable stuff. And would it be fair to say that a lot of e-commerce sites are just regurgitating an RSS feed for their SKUs and not creating anything unique or special or valuable?
It's definitely the case. So very often what we try to get people to see is that the product detail page is landing page. So this is where you want to convince the user. This is where we want to make sure they have all the information they need in order to make an informed decision. This can be usage videos, this can be FAQs, this can be possible applications, this should be tackling the level of experience a user might have or might need, etc. And very often they're just going to copy and paste the manufacturer text, or now with ChatGPT, everybody is smart and just rewrites this automatically with ChatGPT and thinks this is much better. Ultimately, we're still not giving more value. We're just really restating the same information in maybe different words, but this doesn't make the page more valuable. But what we have seen, and this is funny, you mentioned like this specific answer you had on the video. 18 years ago, I think, when I moved to Spain, my first client I had here in the office refurbishment space, I asked him for a list of specific word-by-word questions his clients asked on the phone or in direct conversations. And he gave me a list and we started producing content. And we took the exact question with the exact wording and produced an exact answer. And those articles have been driving leads for 18 years. Those articles are training the language models, and those articles are coming up now referenced in language models as well. So a specific answer for a specific question will always be valuable. There might be more or less visibility given to it on Google. We have seen with Reddit, a lot of sites get less visibility to their Q&A style content. But at the same time, they are training very well the language models because they're just providing these answers, these texts that are going to be similar to the query, similar to the possible conversation somebody is having with the language model. So I think this has always been a safe bet. Is one of those things I would definitely try to exploit as an e-commerce site, maybe supported with video like you're saying.
Reddit is very much a question and answer site, isn't it? And little niche forums. I feel like my somewhat extensive experience in forum marketing has given me a very good feel for frequently asked questions, because I don't know how many questions I've answered, but I'm going to guess it's in the region of more than 100,000 questions over the last 16 years now. I answer questions every single day for a living. And I heard this great Reddit technique, right? This person, they go and post a question on Reddit. Let's say your woodworking shop. They go, what's the best lathe to use for, I don't know, softwood if I'm making candlestick holders, right? And then they log in a different account and they answer with a preposterous answer that's very wrong and misleading. And then they sit back and they wait for everyone to come in and correct them and to fix the answer. And so they're generating all this response off their first inquiry, which is it's quite a funny thing. But I can imagine how that data set would be quite fresh and original and be loaded with context. That would be fantastic for training a language model.
Absolutely. And Reddit, on top of that, is largely pretty well moderated as well. So it's very often when people try to be too aggressive, too salesy, etc., they get their account either shadow banned or directly blocked. They have upvotes, so you can essentially also assess the different answers. How often have they been upvoted, and this compared or combined with a few other characteristics is probably a decent guideline on what to use and what not to use as training material. But I think there's also an interesting component here. And as you mentioned, Peter Drucker recommended a book to me the other day as well. It's interesting how he mentioned how to double down on the human element. I found this really interesting. And this also matches what we see where people are searching for this human experience. And I think this is going to be much bigger. One of the best investments people are doing these days is actually building up niche forums, because people want to hear from people like them what their experience was.
I mean, he predicted so far in advance the rise of e-commerce and the internet, all the opportunities that are available. I mean, we've seen it pan out in the last 25 years since he wrote that information in particular. It's just so far ahead of the game. I don't know if there's anyone even comparable to Peter Drucker's mind as a business thinker. But there are so many lessons. And I've been saying this for quite some time. The more AI and automation comes, the more human experience will be valuable. I don't know if you've heard of this expression about the dead web, but it's where almost the whole internet is just fake shit. Like there are entire accounts with pretend influencers who are robot videos and audios, fully scripted, made up, just telling untrue stories to drive traffic. And so we do see it in social. We've got bots talking to bots. We've got bots in the DMs. We've got bots sending emails, cut and paste. So a lot of this website content on generic e-commerce stores is just spewed out by machines or, let's be kind, like maybe team members or contractors who don't fully have their heart invested in the topic or even knowledgeable about it. Like imagine it would be pretty hard for some low per article fee contractor in a developing nation to be writing authoritatively about a high-end German lathe, wouldn't it? I mean, they would literally have to go and search Google or one of these tools to find out about that stuff because they don't have hands-on experience with it. So that's what I've noticed about the surf brand for me, where I'm hands-on and actually in the trenches. I've got a big advantage over someone making stuff up because it's going to be highly prized. An actual person who's ridden a surfboard talking about it has to trump someone who's pontificating about the idea of riding it, never even stood on a board. So I guess those insights from actual experience or real humans and forums are loaded with real people. And one thing that I noticed, and it's really occurred to me today I had 3 members join my community, Connect, who were members in the past. One of them was a member in 2014 and used my Own the Racecourse training to go from 0 to 1.5 million views per month. And she said, I'm back. I sold that business and I'm back for more, right? And I actually recognize the names of the people I'm seeing on my socials and in my email opt-ins, and then they arrive in my forum. Like 2 days ago, I saw a guy comment on one of my socials. I saw him opt in to my resources page for my podcast. And then today he's joined my community. So he would have got an email from that. So I think there is still a real human thing happening out there. But I guess what I'm taking away from this, if I had an e-commerce store and maybe one day, who knows, I'll sell fins or surfboards, then I think your actual customers are a goldmine of potential content. And the big clue that you've given away today is it might really revolve around matching a problem and a solution and clearly communicating that. Is that right?
I think it's definitely right. You want to see what is there. How can you bring in the human element? How can you actually bring this to life, so to speak? And just really thinking where we are heading. We are heading, like you say, in to an area where bots talk to bots. There might be a bot on your website that's a plugin in your WordPress that talks to other bots, and they just decide which product should be bought or whatever. This is where we are heading, right? So we still try to think about how people might be searching. Very often it's not going to be people searching. It's going to be your voice assistant. It's going to be your Alexa performing this search.
Well,
right? So,
and on both ends, right? There was a video I saw of two cyborg bots unloading shopping and putting it in the fridge. So imagine this, like your fridge will probably communicate to the supply store that it needs this particular stock. The supply store will automatically pack it and ship it maybe by a drone to your rooftop or something, and then your cyborg will go grab it and then stick it in your fridge. And you weren't involved in any of that. I mean, it's possible we're heading down that path. But yeah, in the bot-to-bot world, where can we stand out? I think it might be cool to talk about 5 practical optimization tips for your e-commerce store. Like, what can we do as at this time, it's 2025, we're in the crossover period now. There's a lot of tectonic plates shifting. Let's nail down 5 things we can do as a practical list.
Absolutely, let's do it. The first on my list is definitely the brand. Whatever you can do for your brand to get stronger, be more known, more trusted, more authoritative in your space, the better it's going to be on all platforms.
So that can also apply to personal brands too, right?
Absolutely. But you want to ultimately just think of it in terms of searches. You want your brand to be searched for very often, because it just shows how often are people directly searching for you because they already know what you provide, rather than have to discover what your brand by accident in a comparison list, for example.
Is it possible that the reason branded searches are rising is because people have discovered it on an AI tool?
It could be an AI tool, it could be social media, it could be a niche forum, it could be a video they have seen and they just took a screenshot and searched with the image on Google directly in Google image search. We have all kinds of ways to discover brands these days, but with the amount of content we consume, there is a high chance that the discovery actually doesn't happen after a Google search these days, but actually happens across the different platforms, which is why it's so important to actually be present where your audience is, be present there, engage with them. You should be a known name on the main platforms, ideally, because this is just part of building this strong brand that's ultimately going to be sustainable as a pillar in your marketing.
It has to be good for your conversions anyway, right?
Also for your conversions, but also imagine that not only you are talking to your audience, but there's somebody else on the forum suddenly mentioning your brand as one of the main ones. This is the ultimate goal, I think, for cross-platform engagement, where you're just such a known name that your name is just dropped whenever a certain topic comes up.
You'd have to think, look at companies like Red Bull. Like, it's just globally known and has very strong imagery and brand connotations, I suppose. So, yeah, love it. All right. Well, that's good. So action step, anything that we can do to focus on our brand can really improve our visibility and also our conversions. What's number 2?
Number 2 for e-commerce sites is definitely the product detail page. Adding value, making sure we match potential AI conversations, making sure this page is as valuable as possible, has some testimonials, shows some faces, shows some people using this, actually having a good experience with it. Maybe some influencer marketing or whatever can help to communicate how this product can be used, this product can be trusted, this product is a quality product, reviews obviously as well. So I think it pays off for e-commerce sites to really focus a lot on those product detail pages, not just uploading under 1,000 products to the store with manufacturer descriptions or slightly just spun up with a tool, but actually say, okay, somebody's making their buying decision on this product. And sometimes we see people really not spending enough time here. They just say, okay, this is a $15, $20 product. I'm not going to spend an hour here. But you're just going to see that the product doesn't get any visibility at all then. So you really want to have on your store pages that are actually available for users, that users enjoy visiting. And ultimately, very often what I tell my clients is they can just think that somebody from Google or from ChatGPT lands on this product. If they don't find the information they're looking for, they're going to hit the back button and click on another result. And this is exactly the signal we want to avoid, because this tells Google, hey, this page isn't as valuable as the other one, where the user doesn't have to come back and click on something else.
Right. So action step, make your product pages awesome, really good descriptionals, conversational, FAQs, clear, understandable.
Exactly.
What about number 3?
Number 3 is Google Merchant Center. Google Merchant Center, for the listeners who don't know, it is pretty much, so-called, I would say it's a database. It gets the data feed from your store and prepares the data so Google can then use it. So you feed the data into it. It fetches on a regular basis your data feed with the latest prices and availability, stock, etc., and then uses this data. So many people think this is only for Google Ads purposes. I just had a conversation with an e-commerce site yesterday again, where they say, what about your merchant feed? And I say, yeah, we turned it off because we are not doing Google Shopping ads anymore. However, on Google, there is a products tab. So for product-related searches, Google, where next to the images tab, there is a products tab where you can actually browse products. And the products you're going to see there come from information from the Google Merchant Center. So even though somebody is not doing Google Shopping ads, they still should be having, this is a free tool, the Merchant Center should be having an access and updated the information in the Google Merchant Center, so you can actually leverage the organic part of it as well. And then Google has all this structured information they can also use in order to enrich your search results. So it's definitely valuable to make sure that your Google Merchant Center has a proper feed in there.
So your action step there would be to make sure that your feed's up to date and has all your rich product details.
Exactly.
What's action step number 4?
Action step number 4 is definitely social media. So we see very often these days when you ask about a specific brand, and this is also a very likely search for ChatGPT, for example, where it's like, okay, what is this and this brand is about? Can I trust them, etc.? The language models are going to cite information this brand shared on social media. So this is the place where you can talk about products. This is the place where you can talk about customers' experiences. This is the place where you can share testimonial videos with a comment maybe. Always try to make sure that you have a context-rich comment or description next to it so the language model can better process it. But I think social media work is definitely really, really important. Organic social media work, not only ads, but really obviously engaging with your audience, but just really talking about what is it that you're selling. What can it actually be used for? What kind of audiences does it apply to? Here is an, I don't know, this business coach with my surfboard, right? And then here is this, I don't know, this carpenter with my table saw,
That
right?
sounds so
I just want
douchey.
to talk a little bit about, I think most business coaches are surfers, aren't they?
Oh God, I hope not. I mean, it's a bit too cliched, I think.
Yeah. But the idea is to connect your product with the potential target audience, so the language model can understand those connections. It's all about the connections. I've been talking about the join the dots example for 20 years right now, because it has always been this way, but it has never been so important as now with the language models and AI.
I remember there was a friend of mine I met in Belize years ago, probably, gosh, I'm thinking it was about 15 years ago. And he was talking about this idea of social SEO. And I thought he was a bit off his tree at the time, but he really was just probably a little early to the market. But even I'm interested in SEO, social signals now. Like we've put a lot more effort this year in particular, a lot more effort into our Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube to get all those tentacles of the octopus out there and bring them back. Of course, each platform's got its own thing. With LinkedIn, you can get a link to your site on every post if you pay the little bit extra to be a professional. And with Instagram, a lot of it's coming from either DMs or the bio link. X is really good for networking, and you can directly communicate with someone, which is quite good when you respond to their posts. And YouTube is it's blowing me away at the moment with how good it is when you get the right piece of content. And to your point, the most successful video that I've got on my new business channel is a FAQ video for the recruitment business for visionfind.com. Every single week, multiple inquiries coming through to the recruitment business as a result of watching that video. And especially to your point, some of the comments are people saying, hey, I saw this video. I went to the service. We're using it. They're amazing. I just came back here to post that. And I'm like, this is just amazing. It's like absolutely perfect. What a great piece of content. And I'm pretty sure that it's showing up in search results because the video's got the most views on that channel as well. So and this is like an oil well. It just keeps pumping. I haven't and probably should run some paid traffic to that particular video, but it is probably the most dominant traffic source for the business, and I'm not spending a cent on it. And it took probably, I don't know how long the video is, maybe 50 minutes to record in the first place. Oh, plus like a few decades of hiring hundreds and hundreds of people. Of course, there's the actual content. And this also speaks to my point before. If you have actual expertise or knowledge in something that's stronger than the rest of the market, that's what the platform's looking for, whichever platform it is, and they're going to put it out there. And so it sort of does tie it all together. I'm definitely convinced that social strategy is important for an e-commerce store, because actually a lot of the e-commerce things I've purchased, I've discovered on socials. The last loaf of bread or protein powder that arrived to this house came from social media ads on Facebook. And so once you're in, of course, they get the email and then they offer renewals, like, because these are consumable products. And I'm going to say this, and I think people are probably sick to death of this. Email is still the Mac daddy, right? If you can put things out there that collect email addresses on your e-commerce store, that is awesome. I've seen some of my friends and / clients like Ezra Firestone do this particularly well. Build more of a direct response website, lots of social and community and interaction. And he put so much effort. I still remember when we were in Hawaii about 11 or 12 years ago, and he was running around the backyard with the camera, and Kerry's wife was filming him, and he was making all the landing page videos. Hey, thanks for opting in, and onboarding videos and upsell videos and referral videos. Like, he was doing that 12 years ago. It's no wonder that he sold that business for tens of millions of dollars, because a lot of people aren't even bothering to change the description from whatever the original supplier gave them. So there's that.
I think it's also important here to mention the connection between the brand that you build and how important social media then is, because the amount of people typing in James Schramko email marketing, James Schramko conversions, James Schramko something, this has value, right? You have a strong brand, and then people search for your opinion, and they ask ChatGPT, what does James Schramko think about this and that, right? And this is where the brand then kicks in, and this is where all your social media channels kick in. So on the one hand, you want to build a brand, you want to support it then by social media, by being very specific about specific topics.
And most of us have it on a platter. I do group calls every week. Yet I know you know this because you're on them, but for others, maybe they didn't know that. Zoom can now send me it's got a little AI companion, and it sends me an email after the call of the text summary. I gather a few weeks worth of text summaries and then crunch them into little video snippets, and then I put the videos back out into socials, and they are literally questions that I've answered in a paid community that go back out to socials as demos or samples, but they're definitely building the brand. They're definitely high value Q&A style content that's relatively unique compared to what else is out there. And I think this is all working together in concert to generate the results that they're generating, which is really good. So I'm curious, if before we wrap up, what do you think is happening next? I know that's sort of putting you on the spot, but I know we can't count on it being the same, that there is definitely evolution happening, if not a revolution. It's just like, this seems to be, to me, as significant as the internet was. Google's hanging in there by the sound of it, if they're still getting 400 times more search volume. People do still search because we don't know the answers, but we know we can go get them. Probably we're still going to be using Google for a while, but we're starting to use these other tools. And websites themselves almost seems like they're having an undercover renaissance, because I know for a fact that because I had websites with a lot of content, that did seed the training models for AI. It's almost ironic in a way that the oldest discipline that people forgot when they all went to social is what's feeding the next thing. I've leapfrogged the whole social boat that I kind of missed by getting back in the next turn.
I think there's one, and this is actually the fifth element I think I would definitely recommend, is to double down on what voice search could be. So I'm really waiting, and have been for, actually, I thought it was going to go quicker for at least a year, for the voice assistants to start talking to us like ChatGPT does and being able to research something and actually summarize the answer. I think this is going to be a huge impulse to AI adoption, where we are going to just start getting used to having a conversation with a device. Like right now, we can have it on an app on the phone, but it isn't as natural as talking to it in the kitchen while I'm preparing my dinner. I could be discussing something, brainstorming something with this device I have there anyway. It could show me on the screen an example, or show a product, or help me with the shopping experience in a more in a smoother way, let's say. I think voice search is really the thing I'm actually waiting for. And I think this is going to jumpstart a whole new game here in SEO as well.
Yeah, it's like a frustratingly shit at the moment, especially the Google one. You ask it a question, it says, "Oh, I can't share that with you." Or my daughter asked it a question and it says, "Can you let me know who's asking the question, please?" It's like I asked Siri something, and then it says, "I'll send the answers to your phone." I'm like, I'm cooking here. I don't want to find my phone. That's why I'm talking to you. So it's like they're really going out of their way to make the voice not very good. And that's the one that I feel like I'd benefit the most from, because I found other ways to talk for a living, and not because I can't type very well. And yeah, I think this is interesting. So are you in general excited or nervous about how your business will navigate this next year or so for the e-commerce market?
Well, I'm definitely excited. We have tons of innovations going on. I think we were never innovating that much and that fast. Like as we do today, it's just become so easy and quick to develop new tools, to start applying them to lists of URLs, to content, to run the mathematics behind the scenes, really track those. We start having our own tracking AI tracker up on our SEO Leverage app, for example. So there's always something going on. My team is excited as well. Obviously, everybody knows the team is going to be here to stay. We don't try to have a one-man SEO agency. We have a team of 17 people right now, and multiple writers, just making sure we edit the content and make sure it is in line with where we want to go. So I think we are all really, really excited. Nobody has an idea what this is going to look like in a year. It's hard for us to say what it looks like in 6 months, but I think we have built a process where we are very, very quick adapting to the changing landscape, where we're revisiting every couple of weeks what's the new situation. Let's make sure we realign, we update the methodologies. I think it's going to be extremely exciting, and SEO, I think, was never more powerful than right now, because it's just going beyond Google across all platforms.
Yeah, I want to address that one-man operator thing. It's very common. I see this, lots of the techie people You're talking about one-man businesses. They build all the tools to automate everything that they used to need people for. And they're doing some really cool stuff. But you'd have to be tech enough to fix it or to make it all work. And then ultimately, it's kind of a lonely existence. I'm actually really grateful to have a small team because I'm still one layer back from having to actually build and integrate and manage and look after all those things. The team does that. And so that's like an ultimate luxury. I feel like Robinson Crusoe on the island, like he would have had a lot of work, even though he's there by himself in paradise. He's still like plenty of things to do to go and climb up the tree, crack a few coconuts, or hunt down some dinner. It's good to have the help of humans. I think a small team is still a good idea, and that's unlikely to change in the very short term. So there you go, episode 1113, e-commerce SEO in the age of the ever-changing AI. I've been chatting with Gert Mellak from SEOleverage.com and PlatformLeverage.com, and him and his team have been helping a lot of e-commerce stores. Some of my original clients, my OG GOAT clients, have been calling on him for help. If we want help from you, Gert, how do we get it?
Just head over to SEOleverage.com, get on a call with me. We check out your business, check out if there's something we can help with, or at least guide you to the next relevant steps.
Love it. Thank you so much for your constant sharing of wisdom and for helping us navigate the choppy waters of change.
Thank you so much, James, for having me here.
This is James Schramko.